Please welcome from Japan, Jun Mizutani. The officials umpire for Yemen is Nuko Al-Hashi. The assistant umpire for Qatar, Saeed Al-Qatari. Ladies and gentlemen, it is men's singles qualifying GAC ITTF World Tour Qatar 2012.
And now for the third quarterfinals match of the day in the men's division, competing for the third of four spots in the semi-finals tomorrow. It is going to be Jun Mizutani from Japan, and he is facing the current Olympic champion Marlin from China. Marlin, now 31 years of age, world ranked at 7, ranked as high as number 1. He has played in the World Championships a numerous amount of times, placing second in 2007 and in 2005, and reaching the quarterfinals in 2011. As I said, he's the reigning Olympic champion. Won finals match against Wang Hao in Beijing 2008. And his opponent, Jun Mizutani, 22 years old. He's now world ranked number 9. He as well played the 2011 World Championships and also placed in the quarterfinals. Played in the World Cup, reaching 4th place in 2011 as well as 2010. And has reached the semi-final stage of the Asian Games in 2010. Has won numerous World Tour events. Last one being the Grand Finals 2010. And he also is a juniors champion. Highest one can be won. He won the World Junior Championships in 2005. So we're going to have a very interesting matchup for the third quarterfinals as well, which is about to begin now as the players finish their 1-minute warm-up stage. You can already see Marlin using the reverse penhold style we saw earlier in Wang Hao's play as well. He, along with Wang Hao, one of the players who developed this style themselves, although Marlin also prone to using the traditional penhold style. So he can do both, and both equally well, as I'm sure he'll be showing us during this match. For most players outside of China, Marlin is the most difficult player to play in the world because he's so unpredictable. You never know what he's going to do next. Never know what spin he uses. I'm sure Jun Mizutani will find out during this game. Level.
Love to.
First 2 points though go to Jun Mizutani, bringing through both his services. That is Marlin as we know him. Service completely underestimated by Jun Mizutani, and he went in for the third ball attack. Classic Chinese penhold style. Keep the rallies short.
3-1.
Jun Mizutani showing us that he can do that as well, and equally well. Top spin with no underspin, which Marlin expected. And in this matchup especially, as well as in, or maybe all table tennis matches, it will be decided by the service and return game.
2-4.
Player gets a top spin in first, most of the time, makes the point as well.
2-5.
Excellent service by Jun Mizutani. 7-2 now his lead. Very uncharacteristic from Marlin. There's many problems. The serve of his opponent. Two direct points with the service of Marlin. And as I was saying earlier, if he had 50 opportunities for service, he would make every time a different service. Very hard to read, although it may look the same on the outside. Completely different spin.
8-5.
That can be said for Jun Mizutani so far as well. 8-5 his lead. And heavy top spinning on the third ball. That was an excellent return here by the young Japanese player, awarding him 5 game points in the first game.
11-5.
Uses the first one directly, winning the first game against Marlin 11-5.
Second game, lead to serve. Bravo.
Back to the table it is for both players. serving for the second game.
Well done. Love to.
Come up straight 2-0.
One, two. Two all.
And an excellent flick over the table. Launched himself into that. Both legs in the air. Very difficult to play. Nice touch by Jun Mizutani.
Three, two.
And that always used to be one of the weaknesses from the Japanese player. When he's forced back from the table. Forced to play off court. Which he normally likes, but he's not dangerous from that distance.
2-4.
Doesn't have the hard topspin required to make the point from far back. As spectacular as it may be. The opening stages of the second game, both players playing through their service games. Straight 2-0. 4-2 the lead for Marlin.
3-4. Four all.
And in this game as well, score tied at 4-0. Beautiful backhand smash just from the wrist here, Jun Mizutani.
5-4.
And another 2-0 service game from Marlin, the third one in this game. And that is the first time that someone took a point in the service of his opponent. This time it is Marlin.
Seven, five. Eight, five. Six, eight.
Beautiful backhand flick on the return from the Japanese player.
Six, nine. 9-7.
Wonderful touch here by both players, actually. Top block by Jun Mizutani. Malin lifting the spin exactly the same amount of side spin it had before, but Jun Mizutani saw that. Went in for the smash. Ma still up. 9-7.
10-7.
Now it's 10-7, which means 3 game points for the Chinese player. And with the direct service point, he takes the second game, 11-7.
Third game. Jun to serve. Double.
Japanese player Jun Mizutani serving for the third game of the match, which is tied at 1-1 between him and the Olympic champion Ma Lin from China.
Love to.
Ma Lin, of course, not as fast as he used to be. All the more difficult to play compared to him a few years ago.
1-2.
Go.
3-1.
Go.
3-2. Three all.
Service mistake, rarely seen in professional table tennis. Still, it happens sometimes, even to players like Jun
3
Mizutani.
all.
Three all now, giving Ma Lin the opportunity to build a lead.
3-4.
He does a service mistake in return. Either very fair gesture or lack of concentration on his part.
4 all. Five, 4. 5 all.
Marlin hitting that one right off the bounce, barely giving it time to bounce on the table. Good topspin by Mizutani, but very fast attack from Marlin. And that is what he is known for, of course. Doesn't have the very hard topspin, but he can, in an instant, change the pace of the game. Very cleverly played from Jun Mizutani here, though. Playing deliberately a slow topspin. That one and the next one as well, forcing Marlin to step. A little bit of luck here. Ma equalizes to 6 all in the third.
Six all.
Good reaction shot by Jun Mizutani, and in turn played it right through to the end. Beautiful touch here, pushing Marlin far away from the table, forcing him to open up his backhand corner.
6-8.
And now the 22-year-old player from Japan is up 8-6 in the third. In a game that has been changing fortune in every game. First one clearly for Mizutani, second one for Marlin. The third for Mizutani again, not like this though. That is what I meant by unpredictable. You cannot see where Marlin is going to play that topspin. It could be the backhand corner, it could be the middle of the table, it could be the forehand corner, as in this instance. Right at the last second, he pulls back his wrist. No time to prepare for Jun Mizutani. He's up to the challenge as the Japanese team applauds him. Doesn't let go of the opportunity to score. 9-8 his lead in the third. That is excellent table tennis here by both players. Jun Mizutani keeps attacking and attacking, even though Marlin throws back this incredible topspin. He's a little late for the second one, though.
8-10.
2 game points for Jun Mizutani. And he uses the first one. Jun Mizutani taking the third game off of Marlin, 11-8. Looks like both players are waiting for the music to finish, which happens at this moment. And Marlin is serving. It's the 1-2 lead. And it's time.
1 love. Love 2.
I think the service of Mizutani caught the edge of Marlin's racket. He couldn't have misjudged it. That amount. Excellent topspin here, though, from Jun Mizutani, tying at 2-all. Very heavy topspin from far below. Pulled up his arm over his head. And these are the kind of wide shots that Mizutani needs to win against Marlin, to force his opponent to move from one side to the next. Although incredible save here from Marlin.
3-all.
And in turn, Mizutani misses one, let's say, relatively easy shot. Ball bounces a bit to the right. Maybe some side spin on there that Mizutani did not see. Clear to see his tactics during the whole match, really. To play wide into the forehand of Marlin, because more often than not, he simply does not step to the right.
3-5.
Nice service from Marlin. Pulling up the bat right at the last seconds. Beautifully to see here in the slow motion. And in that one as well. Wonderful sequence of services here by the Chinese player. Whatever spin was on there, I can't even tell. And I'm watching it in slow motion. And although there are not really many long rallies, this game is still tight, still close. Now it's 6-all. Could be anyone's game here. Wonderful placement from Jun Mizutani.
6-7.
Really being bold enough to, in these kinds of situations, play short, play long, play fast, play slow. Made all the right choices here, Jun Mizutani. That rally as well. Playing into the body of Marlin, who seems surprised once more. Nice flick here from the backhand side. Now it's 8-6 for the Japanese player. Who once again uses the opportunity given to him on the third ball. Mizutani as well is said to have very difficult to read services. Now, if you watch the last, let's say, 6 services of Marlin, it was never the same service. Always different spin, different length. That makes him so hard to play for almost everyone.
9-all.
No, Mizutani now with his own service, given the opportunity to close this game. Same could be said for his opponent, who gets the first game point. Marlin almost worked himself back into that rally. Mizutani, though, keeping the upper hand. Tying once again at 10-all. And works himself up to the next game point. This time for him. 11-10 with his own service. If he could win this particular game, that would be huge for the entire match. Don't know if Marlin can come back from a 3-1.
11-all.
Not yet. 11-all. Was close too. Once again, in these tight situations, Mizutani has shown to be creative, shown that he's willing and able to mix it up if he needs to. Playing a push game against Marlin, that is bold to say the least. This time successful for the Japanese player. Serving for yet another game point. And this one he takes, fighting himself to a 3-1 lead against Marlin. Jun Mizutani winning the 4th game, 13-11. Now Jun Mizutani serving for the match. He's up 3-1 against Marlin from China, the reigning Olympic champion.
Love 1. One all. Two one.
Once again, Mizutani doing the right thing here, forcing Marlin to move far across the table into his forehand side. He doesn't capitalize on it as well as this one. And Marlin has shown us time after time that once he leads, it could be over pretty soon. He's up 3-1. Misses that one as well. Underestimated the underspin Marlin put on the ball. With these chop block, the traditional penhold backhand. And that was just fantastic. Barely letting the ball bounce, Marlin pouncing in on it. Great topspin by Mizutani. Just flicked it over the table.
5-1.
Expertly done, Marlin. And it's 6-2. 4 points lead be enough for Marlin to close at least this game. And did you see that? Once again, the chop block from Marlin, very unusual, to say the least. A lot of side spin on the ball that Jun Mizutani did not see. And that is just plain incredible. Marlin playing around the net. Ball barely bounces, it almost rolls on the table, but Jun Mizutani, like it's nothing, blocking it. Wow. Amazing.
4-9.
And that game does not seem to develop in the direction Jun Mizutani wanted it to. Marlin is up 10-5 now, still 5 game points left for him. Still 4 left, no worries.
6.
And it proved to be enough for Marlin, who's now almost leveled the score. 2 games to 3 against Jun Mizutani.
Sixth match. Latest serve. Love on.
This is the 6th game between Marlin of China and Jun Mizutani. Marlin is now serving, and he's down 1 game, 2 games to 3.
Love on. Full up.
Great table tennis here from both players. A little lucky here for Jun Mizutani as well. Just pushed the side spin from Marlin back, and subsequent topspin caught the net. 2-0. Just now has his first service.
3 love. Time out.
Now it's 3. It's getting dangerous for Marlin, who has called a timeout. At 3-0. Wu Jinping having a hard job now. The head coach for the panel players, as there are only panel players left for the Chinese team. We saw Wang Hao earlier, now Marlin and Xu Xin in the game afterwards.
1-3.
Timeout seems to have been effective for Marlin at least. Did step around this time to play the forehand. And that is what separates Jun Mizutani from all the other players playing against the Chinese we've seen today. When it gets close, during a tight situation, he still is creative. He doesn't fall back to a game that he knows that he can play. He plays what is necessary, attempting something new as well. That is very bold from Jun Mizutani here. Rightfully so, he leads 4-2.
4-3. Let. 4-3.
Good service variation here from the Japanese. And you can see side underspin, but Marlin saw it in time.
Go! 4-5.
What a beautiful service here from Marlin. Again, even in slow motion, very hard to see what kind of spin was on the ball. It was side spin to the middle of the table, and the length was just awesome. Causing a service mistake from Jun Mizutani. Couldn't go any better now for Marlin. Leads by 1 point, 6-5. And that one you shouldn't have missed. It was relatively easy. Good return here from Marlin. Mizutani just pushing it. There was no real topspin on the ball. Marlin should have seen that. Tried to play topspin instead. And it's 6-all again. That's what I've been talking about staying creative, trying new things in different situations and in difficult situations as well. Mizutani displaying it perfectly. Manages to once again tie the game here. This time it's 7-all. Still, if he manages to win this game, it's his match as well. Almost close. Almost caught the side. Point for Marlin though. This time Marlin gets there at the right moment, managing to lift it up again in his deep forehand, where Jun Mizutani used to score during the course of this match. Now he cannot. And it's now 9-7 for Marlin. And it more and more looks like this game will go into a final and deciding 7th game. Jun Mizutani getting progressively more passive here in the course of this game. And he's late for the touch once again, twice in this rally. And Marlin takes the 6th game, 11-7.
Sixth game, Jun to serve. Level.
And it's the final and deciding 7th game. Mizutani serving at level.
Level 1.
Crucial first point once again goes to Marlin. He may have turned the match. Still a little too early to tell. Still anyone's game. Although Marlin takes the 2nd point as well.
One, 3. One, 4. Time out.
Timeout now called at 4-1. Right choice by Jun Mizutani, maybe a little bit early. Excuse me, a little bit late, of course. Point of this timeout by Jun Mizutani, of course, was to break the rhythm of his opponent. That is one of the many uses of the timeout.
1, 4.
More traditional one being to keep the lead. And this is the more difficult timeout, the one to turn it around. Marlin doesn't seem to be affected by it. He's now up 5-1. May look to win this match if it keeps going. It's now very difficult for Jun Mizutani to keep his cool. He must be thinking, I had this game. Takes it 1 point at a time. Still, considering the score, I still see Mizutani in an advantage the longer the rally goes. Marlin lives off these short rallies, service and return, 3rd ball attack, 5th ball attack. Like he attempted here.
6-4.
That point could have been the decision for the match. Very important here at 6-4. Marlin advancing in his lead with 3 points.
Five, seven.
And now we can hear it as well. Marlin now wants to win it too. He's down only 3 points from victory. He would have turned around. Huge lead from his opponent. It's now 2 points, and Jun Mizutani doesn't look like he can turn it around once more. And that is incredibly difficult to play here from Marlin. If anyone can do these shots, it is him. Bouncing back from the net ball and then playing this topspin. Incredible angle here. And now he has 5 match points with his own service to boot. And he uses it at the first time of asking. Good performance here by Marlin. Jun Mizutani looking like the winner of this match, which Marlin in turn wins 4 games to 3. And he advances into the semifinals as well, where he'll be facing the winner of the next game. Confirmation on screen. Marlin beating Jun Mizutani.
Quarterfinals goes the way of Marlin. He beats Jun Mizutani 5-11, 11-7, 8-11, 11-13, 11-6, 11-7, 11-5.